Am I the a-hole for refusing to participate in my sister's funerals? I'm 16 male. I live with my dad, 48 male, and his wife, Annabelle, 30 female, and my half-sister Stacy, 6 female. At the end of November, my cousin, also 16 male, died in an accident. I was there. He was my best friend. My aunt and uncle are devastated, although they have said a bunch of times that it wasn't my fault. He was my cousin on my late mum's side, and Stacy only met him a couple of times in passing. My sister has been kind of fascinated by what happened to Dally. She had never been to a funeral before. It started pretty much straight afterwards with her having funerals for her toys. Then a few weeks ago, she started having funerals for herself. She lies down and says she's died, and then Annabelle says that we have to dress nicely and come say nice things about Stacy. So she lies there while Annabelle cries about how much she'll miss her, and then when we said enough nice things, Stacy gets up and says she's alive and it's over for another few hours. Yesterday, she did this 3 times. I can't take much more of this. Annabelle says that Stacy is conceptualizing mortality for the first time and doing it in an incredibly creative way, and I need to be supportive. She says I already conceptualized it when my own mum died, and I need to be less selfish. She says my negative flow is disrupting the energy of the house, and I should go stay somewhere else if I can't contribute positively to the family dynamic. I would like to be anywhere else, but the only places I could go are my grandparents on my mum's side, who live in a retirement community and are very old and sick, and my aunt and uncle. Although they say they don't blame me and they love me, I don't think that they should have to be around me that much right now. So I should probably toughen up and just join in Stacy's funerals. After all, I'm alive and all I have is a broken arm. Sorry. Thanks for listening. TLDR, my sister is being weird after my cousin died, and I'm not being patient. Am I the a-hole? In the comments, not the a-hole. First of all, I'm very sorry for your loss, and the fact that you were there must have been incredibly traumatic. I hope you're able to get some sort of counseling to work through this. Your sister is not conceptualizing death, she's playing a new game because her mother is positively reinforcing her to do it. Your stepmother is being incredibly insensitive. OP replies, Annabelle says Stacy needs to see death as a part of the enchanting dance of life, and so we all need to show that we can celebrate the circle of our existence. Because I am the one who has just gone through a bereavement, my reaction is the most important to Stacy. Please tell your father and any other supportive adult you know what is going on. This is not right at all, and the fact that she told you to essentially play along and harm your mental health, or you could go stay somewhere else, makes this abusive AF. Not the a-hole. Your stepmother is cruel, and this behavior is unhinged. I hope someone in your life is looking out for you. OP replies, my dad knows. He just wants Annabelle to be happy. The other adults I would normally talk to are grieving, so this seems like something I have to shoulder myself. My dad says it's about being a big brother. Well, that's because he wants his young wife happy. She was in her early 20s, and he was in his early 40s when they got together. Yeah, she taught something that wasn't yoga, but was similar. I can't remember. It was a big age gap. Her mother is the same age as Dad. Well, next time she dies, freak out. Scream and wail and sob like you wanted to for your cousin. Go completely apecrap on them. I bet stepmom won't want you to traumatize your sister. Then tell your dad that it's all her fault for making you play funeral when you clearly almost died and your close friend and cousin did. Sounds like your sister is enjoying the attention more than anything else. Since her mother is of no help, is it possible for you and your dad to redirect your sister towards a different outlet? You could also be age-appropriately frank with your sister and let her know that this is hurting your feelings. Don't shame her or tell her it's wrong, just be honest. This is a great moment to teach your sister sympathy that her mother is missing out on. I agree. The sister is young, but still old enough to understand if someone explains it to her that her new game isn't fun for everyone. Maybe you could suggest that funerals are too sad and you want to go to her wedding or something instead. Then suggest that your stepmother take her out to get a mini makeover or something fun so she is happy with the new plan. This is a good plan. You can even say, let's do a toast, and then say a bunch of nice things about her then. I really think the little one's concept of death is basically someone lies down while a bunch of people gather around and say nice things about them and how much they love them, etc. A little kid wanting attention is pretty normal, but it's an adult's job to channel that in healthy ways. And further down we have a unique comment. Please read my comments. I don't know how Reddit works. I've never joined anything like this before. I am the mother of Annabelle, and I am appalled at what has been going on. I didn't raise her like this. I'm about 95% sure that my daughter's stepson has written this and has been missing for almost a full day. He has a broken arm. He is also in a very emotionally vulnerable state, and I am struggling to trace him. If anyone here is messaging him privately or has any idea where he is, please tell him to make contact. Alex, you don't have to stay with your dad. I have a guest room where you can sleep if you need some time alone. You don't have to see any of them if you don't want to. Although I only heard it secondhand, it sounds to me as if you were bang on the money with everything you said. Please know that you are a fine young man with much to offer and accomplish. I promise I can help you if you will just reach out. I also know you do have family who love you, and I can get you to them too if that is what you want. Please don't spend New Year's on your own. Have you been able to make contact? I haven't been able to stop thinking about this poor boy. And they reply, I've got him. He's asleep in my guest room. His uncle is asleep in a chair in there too, and I've got his aunt on my couch. I'm too wired to sleep, but I am so relieved. I am not a praying woman, but the big guy came through for me tonight. Thank you. Thank you for caring enough to find him and offer him a sanctuary. Please let him know that a whole bunch of folks on Reddit have his back and are wishing him peace. And they reply again, I'm not a Reddit person. I was so scared when I heard that he'd posted something online that a stranger would use it to manipulate him. The worst that seems to have happened is someone messaged him with advice on how to join the army. I will be forever thankful that I found him in time, but I do hope that if people read something written by a different vulnerable teenager, they won't just nod along and say good idea when that child states their intention to go somewhere dangerous. These are children. So thank you Reddit for the kind thoughts, but please think more carefully about safety. And now on to the update. Thanks for the support last time. I kind of got in a bad spot after my last post, and I took off by myself, and I got in a weird headspace where I was trying to talk to my cousin and just thinking of how he would answer cause I knew him really well. Anyways, Annabelle's mum found me. She posted here too, and she took me to her place and got my aunt and uncle. My uncle says that I half lived with them anyway, and they wanted me home with them. It's been scary coming here because I feel like my cousin is going to come in at any moment, but it's actually easier because my aunt and uncle both loved him too. Plus, they actually talk to me, so I don't get in my own head as much as I did at my dad's. They've also got me a therapist because they say we all need counseling. Therapist seems nice so far. Things are awkward with my dad. I think he took a lot of crap when Alice, Annabelle's mum, told everyone about what had been happening. He's mad at me because his boss yelled at him, and now he thinks he won't get the promotion that he was expecting. Annabelle's mummy friends saw my post too, and now that's causing her problems. Oops. She wants us to do a guided meditation together to realign our relationship, but I told my uncle no, and he agreed. They put Stacy in therapy on advice of her teacher, and the first thing she said was she was only doing the funerals because she wanted to make me sad. I have decided that I don't want to see her anymore. I'm okay. I miss my cousin. I think I always will. But I'm with good people, and I will go to them for help next time, and not strangers, because I know that they will listen. TLDR, I moved to live with my aunt and uncle, and my dad is pissed. Edit, I'm probably going to be leaving this account now, as I need to focus on my real-world people, but thanks for all the great advice, especially on how to keep connected to my cousin in a way that is healthy. I have actually noted down some ideas. To clarify, my dad is mad because A, people are mad at him, but also because when I spoke to him after I took off, he had a whole list of things that I was going to have to do before he and Annabelle would let me come home, and I just said no, I'm moving in with my aunt and uncle. We are not no contact or anything, but I don't think that he'll be in my life much now. But I'm not struggling with that the way that I would have expected, so it's okay. All the best to all, and thanks again. In the comments, Wow, I can't believe a 6-year-old can be so cruel. Annabelle, I'm sorry to say, sounds nuts, and maybe the feedback she's getting from friends and family will help her change her views on grief, growth, and healing. Also, it's embarrassing that a teacher had to recommend therapy and not her parents when she started having mock funerals. I'm glad you're getting help and that you and your aunt and uncle have each other and can hopefully heal together. I'm so sorry for your loss. Early signs of psychopathy can be seen as young as 2. I don't want to play armchair psychologist, but I think most will agree that a 6-year-old intentionally afflicting sadness isn't normal. OP says, "Nah, she's just a brat. My aunt says she's just playing off her mum and that if there were stronger boundaries, then she wouldn't have so many social problems." That's atrocious that a child was that manipulative at that age. However, if you look at her mother, I imagine you can see partly why. I am so happy that you're in a safe and nurturing environment. I get in my own head a lot, so I keep sticky notes on me, and a pen to write down things to keep track. And if you're really in your head, put on a playlist where you know every word, and even if you've only got one headphone in, you are a bit distracted. Just a little suggestion, but best of luck with everything, sweet. You are still so young and already so mature. Put yourself first and love those that show you love. And OP replies, "Thanks. I think I just really wanted to talk to my cousin, and the therapist says that's okay to try and do as long as I can do it in a controlled way. Like I can write him letters and things. This is a really thoughtful comment, and I do appreciate it." Well, trust me, you are doing wonderful for your age, and letters are a great way to visualize your own thoughts, as well as helping you reach out to your cousin. I am no expert, but I would always keep the ending light, mention something you have in common, or a private joke. Are you learning something new, or have you done something that he would have enjoyed? And if you are asking for help, think about how they would respond about the situation. It should help you find more ways to interpret and solve the issue at hand. At this age, the only thing you need to worry about being is happy and safe. You will be more of both at your aunt and uncle's. We are all rooting for your happiness. And OP replies, "Yeah, we were only 6 weeks apart in age, and my uncle loved my mum, his sister, very much, so we just did everything together. The problem is I know what he would say to most things, so making sure I turn off and remember he is gone is sometimes hard, especially as I don't really want him to be gone. But as long as I'm alive, then a bit of him is too." Am I the a-hole for throwing away my co-worker's sweater? My co-worker, 55 male, has a sweater that he wears every day at work and leaves in the office overnight. He never takes it home to wash, and over the last month, it has developed a distinct smell. At first, I tried to make innocuous comments to him like, "Do you smell something musty?" But he didn't catch on, so last week I said to him, "Hey, that sweater is starting to give off a stench. Could you take it home and wash it?" He replied, "Nah, that's not my sweater," and walked away, which effectively ended the conversation. After he left one night, I went to his desk and smelled the sweater and confirmed that nasty stank, and it was so putrid up close. I have no idea how he lives like this. So I took the sweater on my way out and I threw it in a dumpster out back. The next day, he was looking around for it and asking everyone if they had seen it. I just shrugged and said, "Nah, haven't seen it today," which was technically not a lie. I feel kinda bad, but I can't live like that. We work in a 7-person office with no HR, and our boss is not effective at dealing with issues, so I felt like this was my only option. Am I the a-hole? Clarification, when he said, "That's not my sweater," he was referring to the stink not being his sweater. The sweater was in fact his. He's a bit of an oddball, but I can't imagine even he would wear a random stinky sweater that he didn't own. Edit, I see a lot of people suggesting that I had other options, and the ideas being brought up are frankly asinine. Just spray some Freeze and call it a day. Have you ever sprayed Febreze in a bathroom where someone took a dump? Then you know that it just combines with the crap smell and also gives it a sort of power-up. Next. Tell HR about it. Some people have trouble reading, it seems. I already said that it's a small office with no HR, and our boss is incapable or unwilling to address situations like this. I did in fact bring it up to him, and he said to find a compromise, such as allowing him to wear the sweater 3 days a week. Not a problem solver, this guy. Take it home and wash it for him. I don't think this one even warrants a response. I suppose I should ask the rest of the office if they have any laundry for me to take home so I can do it all at once. Edit 2. I see many people bringing up the legality of this and the police being called or this going to court. May I remind everyone we're talking about a sweater. I'd love to hear how that 911 call goes. Officer, I need to report a missing sweater. Please send your forensics team out ASAP and track this lunatic down before the sweater thief strikes again. Or God forbid I get taken to sweater court. I hope the Honourable Judge Cardigan takes pity on me and offers a reduced sentence if I do people's laundry while in prison. Get real, people. We're talking about office squabbles, not grand theft sweater. In the comments, you're the a-hole. You should have put it in a plastic bag and later spoken with your manager about it. You don't throw away people's belongings. And put it on the manager's desk with a note for him to handle it. I've tossed a few Tupperware dishes out from a communal fridge after a warning email was sent out. The Tupperware was growing stuff because it had sat for so long. I also once tossed an entire pizza box with moldy pizza in it. The fridge wasn't big and the box took up half the space. Health hazards deserve to be tossed. OP, not the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You can't steal someone's property, period. It may have felt satisfying in the moment, but that is an actual crime. If he finds out that it was you and this goes before HR, they're absolutely not going to accept that "I thought it smelled bad" as an excuse. Also, everyone is hung up on the guy saying the sweater wasn't his, but I think he was saying that the sweater wasn't causing the stench, not that the sweater didn't belong to him. OP is fine. There is no HR. There is always an HR. They might not be big enough to have a dedicated HR person or department, but someone has to fill those roles. Her declining to acknowledge this further shows that she's just trying to justify her actions rather than follow a normal pathway. I don't agree with how she handled this, but there are 10,000% places that fully neglect the roles of HR. I've worked at a few of them. Technically, those roles would fall on the boss, correct? But if he doesn't give a crap about anything HR or about conflict resolution related, then there is effectively no HR. I say everyone sucks here because there was absolutely a solution that didn't involve stealing and trashing someone else's property, like what if that had ended up being an extremely sentimental sweater? Still gross to not wash, but still. She's also being extremely patronizing and sarcastic in her edits, which kinda swayed me against her, to be honest. That whole bit on the sweater police was childish and incorrect. Stealing is stealing, clothing or otherwise. And now, on to the update. Hey all, before the update, I just wanted to apologize for getting so defensive in my original post. I've been feeling really stressed about the situation, and I think my guilt expressed itself as anger. Even though I still don't agree with the alternative actions that people offered, I should have been more chill about it. So, the update. We have a Monday morning meeting every week. I had planned to pull my coworker aside at lunch to tell him what happened and explain why I felt it was necessary. At yesterday's meeting, my coworker took the opportunity during other business to bring up his sweater. He said that he felt disrespected, and as multiple people have complained to him about the smell, he hasn't been able to narrow down his suspects, so he needs a full confession or he will be taking further measures. I thought about confessing, but to be honest, his eyes had a crazy look and it made me feel unsafe, so I kept my mouth shut. When no one said anything, he stormed out of the office. My boss predictably did nothing. A couple hours later, he returned with a guy who he said was his cousin and a police officer, though he was in normal clothes and had no badge or ID. He said his cousin was going to be interrogating people individually all day. At this point, my boss finally stepped in and said that wasn't happening and brought my coworker into his office. I don't know what happened in there, but it got loud towards the end, and I didn't see him for the rest of the afternoon. I found out the next day he was fired. Not exactly the outcome I wanted, but it does solve my problem. In the comments, that was starting to turn into an episode of The Office at the end. This was my thought as well. This is the episode where Dwight finds a joint in the parking lot. Found? He was the one who smoked it. Side effects of marijuana can be memory loss, and Dwight lost the memory about smoking it. The boss is such an idiot. He ended up having to fire an employee when all he had to do was tell the guy, hey, you need to either wash that sweater or you can't have it in the office. Simple solution. All of this was ridiculous and happened because of an ineffective boss. I'm guessing what brought on the firing was the guy got aggressive and said something that one really ought not to say to one's boss. In other words, the boss didn't give a crap until the situation affected him personally. Bingo! Like, where was the boss's office? It seemed like somewhere completely away from the sweater situation, so they aren't going through the whole smelly office experience that everyone else was, and didn't care until there was someone screaming in their face about property theft. Maybe OP should have hidden the sweater in the boss's office. Not even hidden it, left it right square on the desk overnight, with the door closed if possible. Let the boss come in to smell that in his office first thing in the morning. Sweater stank permeated through his desktop and paperwork and lingers until just after lunchtime. I feel stuck in my polyamorous relationship. So my boyfriend, 31 male, and I, 27 female, have been dating and living together for 7 years. He is very handsome, smart, and funny, and in general takes good care of me and treats me well. We both moved abroad to Asia 7 years ago, and that's where we met. We moved in together soon after we met. The first 6 months of our relationship, we lived in a tiny room, sharing a single bed and no aircon. It was kind of miserable. I had to do a visa run 1 month, and while I was abroad, I met a guy who I had no intention of sleeping with. He bought me a lot of drinks, I was blackout drunk, and we had sex. I don't remember the majority of that night. That event totally changed our relationship. I'm still traumatized from what happened and don't know to call it sexual assault or cheating or both. The next 2 years of my boyfriend and I living together were incredibly difficult while we tried to make amends. One of the things that we agreed on after a while is that my boyfriend would be allowed to get happy ending massages. He had several of those. I don't really know how many. One of the girls he got to know a bit better, and eventually he ended up sleeping with her. Then he started dating other girls online and going out with them. He was open and honest with me about everything. He slept with around 10 other girls before he settled down. Currently, he has 2 serious girlfriends besides me. We've also gone out to clubs and hooked up with girls together. So here are the issues. 1 is we are riddled with STIs to the point that we never have sex with each other anymore because all it does is make us sensitive. The other one is that he's in love with one of his other girlfriends. We had some agreed upon rules in the beginning, like he has to wear condoms, but I know he doesn't. He talks a lot about how Asian kids are so cute, and he would love to have one. He's trying to convince me that it would be okay for him to have kids with other women, but I just can't agree to it. I'm so sad sometimes because I love him, and we get along really well for the most part. I like his family too, and his brother recently asked me why we don't get married. I know he doesn't want to marry me, and I don't know if we'll ever be ready to have kids together or move to any sort of next level at all. I don't know what to do. In the comments, I don't know what you are doing, OP. He is nasty, diseased, not monogamous, and not looking to procreate with you nor marry you. What are you getting out of this other than a quasi-stand-in boyfriend from time to time? OP says, we hang out every day and share a lot of interests and values. He's smart, and I like discussing things with him. He's also all I have in the way of support. My family is far something, leaning politically, and I have nothing in common with them. My mother is a narcissist, and I have been no contact with her for over 12 years, and low contact with the others. I have no one else. As a woman myself, I can never for the life of me understand why do we do this to ourselves. He sucks. There are better people out there. Leave. Get your STIs treated and get some therapy. Damn, it sucks that you're unsure whether or not what happened to you was sexual assault or cheating. Honey, that was not cheating. You did nothing wrong, and I'm so sorry you were hurt. I don't mean to make assumptions, but it seems like your boyfriend has led you to believe that it may have been cheating, and that is the first in a long list of toxic issues with him in your story. He should have been there for you when that happened to you, not making you feel like you need to make it up to him by letting him get pleasure from other women. That's abusive. Also, polyamorous relationships only work if both partners feel comfortable, cared for, are having their needs met mentally and physically, and most importantly, if all rules are being followed. This man has shown a complete lack of concern for you, and you deserve so much better. OP asks, do you have any recommendations for what I should do, as far as the logistics of the breakup? I told him that I wanted to break up 2 years ago over the same issues, and he said he'd break up with his other girlfriend for me if I needed him to, and then convinced me that I didn't need him to. He's not easygoing, and he's not violent, but he has scared me in our arguments before. One time, he kind of wrestled me and forcibly took my phone out of anger and then hid it from me. Breaking up is going to be super hard because we've been together so long, but even just broaching the topic is going to be hard because he's super sensitive and gets really defensive anytime I want to talk about his other relationships. So, he's physically abusing you too. OP, this guy doesn't give an F about you. And now, on to the update. So I posted here several months ago about my now ex-boyfriend. I can't find the post, but basically I was assaulted while abroad, and he used this trauma to manipulate me into letting him sleep with a ton of girls and having long-term girlfriends. He didn't wear condoms and brought home STDs. First off, I owe Reddit a big thank you for saving my ass. Everyone commented saying, yeah, this is abusive and horrible, and it felt like a wake-up call. I've been moved out for a month now. The only thing I'm still struggling with is what amount of distance to give him. We were dating and living together for 7 years. The biggest reason he let me leave is because I promised we'd still be friends, but now I'm not so sure. I don't text him back until hours later, and I haven't been to the house that we bought together except when he's not there. I need to maintain some kind of relationship with him in order to get the money back for the house that we invested in, but I can't decide if he's a toxic person or just a toxic boyfriend. I told him I'm hurting from the things that he did during our relationship, and that's why I don't want to hang out much. He just said, I'm hurting too. You left me. I feel like I have so much trauma from this, and it sucks he doesn't realize he was in the wrong. I told one of our mutual friends a vanilla version of why we broke up. He liked someone else, and he got mad that I was changing the narrative. I don't know why he thinks we broke up, but he insists that it wasn't because of the polyamory. I don't know. I just feel more and more bitter towards him, and sometimes I just want him out of my life completely. In the comments, he has no say in whether you leave him or not. The very fact he made you promise this is reason enough to cut him off completely. You seem to be so deep into that toxic dynamics, you don't see clearly what is happening. Get out of it, and if you can't, seek help. Also, lawyer up like somebody already suggested. The reason why doesn't matter. You don't need to define a breakup with a reason when it's obviously unhealthy. I'm proud of you for breaking things off. I hope you find peace with what happened. OP says, thank you so much. I feel good about the decision to break up for sure, and I'm obviously going to seek therapy for the trauma. I'm just not sure if it's worth having a friendship with this person or not. A therapist would most likely recommend going no contact so you can cope without more manipulation. I agree. No contact with this man. Toxic people, toxicity in general, should have no room in one's life. Try to cut all ties, sell the home, etc., and move forward. Therapy is a must. Good luck, OP. Tell him that you want to sell the house or he pays you for half of it. Get a real estate attorney if you have to. OP says, he's going to pay for my investment in it. I'm going to get a copy of the paperwork from our house tomorrow and get it all official and stuff, but I feel like it might be easier to act kind of like friends until he pays me back rather than get a lawyer. We live in Vietnam, so these things are not so cut and dry. I'm moving to the UK in May, so he won't be able to manipulate me too much from there. Okay, so paying for your investment isn't the same thing. If the house has appreciated in value, and very few markets haven't, then you'd be losing money by taking just what you originally put in. OP says, I'm willing to cut my losses, honestly. We've only had the house for a few years anyway. Well, as long as you're making an informed decision, then do what you need to do to get out of that situation. Our next post is titled, My girlfriend, female 25, of 4 years, and I, male 24, both tested positive for chlamydia, and I don't know how to handle the situation. So I had to do a health checkup on my nether region recently, and part of it was to give a urine test for chlamydia. It came back positive. Of course, my girlfriend took a test as well, and it also came back positive. We are both asymptomatic. Here's the thing. This shouldn't be possible. We are both each other's first sexual partner, even first kiss. We've been together for 4 years. I have never cheated, and I'm 99.99% sure that she's never cheated either. For one, she is not socially active at all, and is extremely monogamous. But I also can't imagine when she would have been able to cheat logistically, since we spend almost every waking hour together, and have been for the last 4 years. None of us have ever used a second-hand sex toy. None of us has gotten a blood transfusion. Given the situation, it should be impossible for us to contract chlamydia. But somehow we did. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? Did you ever figure out how you contracted it? In the comments, Doc here. Given the circumstances presented, you can pretty much only get it through sexual contact. One of you has strayed or contracted it before the relationship. For her, she really needs to see a gynecologist and be worked up carefully. If she has indeed had chlamydia for years asymptomatic, she could have long-term issues from it going untreated, including infertility. This is pretty serious. Twist. OP cheated and is polling the group for ideas on how to explain it. I too thought this. Someone is lying here, either OP or the girlfriend. Logically, it points to one of two things if you're telling the truth about never having cheated. 1. You were not in fact her first, and she's been asymptomatic the entire 4 years. And 2. She's cheated on you. I'm inclined to go with option 1. If you're confident she hasn't cheated, are you confident that she didn't lie about being a virgin to make herself seem more appealing to you? Another virgin at the time? Someone has been deceptive somewhere down the line. If it wasn't you, then it was her. Yes, this seems most likely to me, though one small part of me can think of a really awful explanation, which I would hope was just a flight of fancy. Or maybe she gave a guy a blowjob before they met, and she didn't count it because she didn't technically lose her virginity. I'd prefer that explanation. And now, on to the update. Well, I now know how I got chlamydia. I got a lot more comments than I expected on my previous post, most of them saying that I should snap out of the delusion, but also some alternative suggestions of how it might have happened. People suggested that she might have lied about me being her first. At first, I didn't think this could be it, as we are both very feminist and progressive generally, so it didn't feel like something that she would lie about. We are not religious either. But who knows? We'd only known each other for about a year when we got together, and maybe she got freaked out. Some people also suggested she might not see oral as losing virginity, but we both do. The other possibility that seemed likely was that she had been sexually assaulted and either doesn't remember or didn't want to tell me. Anyway, after work I stopped by a youth clinic and did a new test just to make sure, as someone suggested. When I got home, I spent the evening trying to figure out how best to ask her about these possibilities. I'm either suggesting that she might have lied to me or possibly bringing up trauma, so I wanted to make sure that I did it in the best way possible, but I won't have to worry about that anymore. And now for the reveal. Luckily, she hasn't been sexually assaulted, and unfortunately she didn't lie to me about being a virgin, so the morning of my last post, I was eating breakfast and watching YouTube on our shared iPad, just like I usually do. I remembered that the iPad is logged into her Snapchat account. Just to make sure, I checked. If she's cheating, surely Snap would be where she's talking to this guy, right? I didn't see any unfamiliar names. I did, however, see that she had an unread message from my best friend's girlfriend. I don't know why, but I checked it, and it said, "I'm gonna get tested today." At first, I thought that they had just discussed it. They are friends after all, and she had decided to get tested as well, but I scrolled up and saw the conversation they had yesterday, and well, I got cheated on. My girlfriend woke up around 5 minutes later and immediately asked me what was wrong. She said I looked pale. I sincerely apologized. Going through her private messages is not okay at all, and told her what I had seen. She came clean immediately. My best friend's girlfriend had only ever been with men, and my girlfriend had only ever been with me. Apparently they were both questioning if they were bi, so while my best friend, male 24, and I were at the gym, they were hanging out at my best friend's place, like they usually do. That day, the curiosity got the best of them, and they had sex. That was last year, and she assures me that it hasn't happened since and won't happen again. I'm not really sure how to feel right now. I always imagined that if I got cheated on, I'd feel crushed, but I'm surprisingly neutral over it all. I don't know. My biggest worry right now is how I'm going to tell my best friend about it. They've been together for almost 2 years, and his New Year's resolution this year was to propose to her. He's going to be crushed, and I hate to think about it. We're going to the gym after work today, so I'll tell him then. Just need to figure out how. One question I got a lot of, and I want to answer, is why I got tested in the first place if I was asymptomatic. The reason I was doing a checkup is kind of embarrassing, but I had noticed an unfamiliar lump on one of my testicles and just wanted to make sure that it wasn't cancer or something. When done with the checkup, the nurse told me that everything seemed fine, and then asked if I wanted to do a urine test for chlamydia. I don't know if it's standard procedure, or if she just thought, might as well do it. In the comments, as a bisexual woman, cheating is cheating. Bisexual here, and have a life history of never cheating on my partners. Just because I'm not container-driven doesn't mean that I need to open every jar as they become available. Same. Gender doesn't mean that she still lied to you and cheated, so that doesn't make anything better. So, silly questions. Your best friend and his girlfriend are in a monogamous relationship for 2 years, and he plans to propose, so 90% he is not cheating. How did the girlfriend have chlamydia and have gone undiagnosed for so long? It's been 1 year since the deed and all 4 people have chlamydia without any symptoms? Trickle truth for the win. This, either best friend's girlfriend's been getting around, or his girlfriend has. I'm questioning how being feminist and non-religious means you wouldn't lie. Maybe in the context he wouldn't mind if she wasn't a virgin, so there is no reason to lie about it. Also, the lump in his testicles is a symptom of chlamydia. I don't think it was a one-time thing and someone else is cheating, either his boyfriend or boyfriend's girlfriend. I'm not sure if you're feeling neutral because it was another woman, but be aware that it may hit you hard later, especially when you say it out loud with your friend and how he may react. It'll also be a mistake to allow yourself, and especially your girlfriend, to write this off as a one-time experiment. She was sexually intimate with someone, planned it through all of the choices and decisions, and has lied by omission ever since. This is now part of your history with her, your future, and relationship. You have to view this as a huge breach of trust. To not do so is simply setting yourself up for further hurt and showing her that there are no consequences to betrayal. Good luck with talking to your friend, and remember that you will also need support. Our next post is titled, "My boyfriend tries to initiate sex almost every day, and it's too much for me. Need advice." So we've been together for 6 years, we live together, and have lots in common. I love spending time with him, and he's my best friend. The one thing that doesn't match is our sex drives. He has a high sex drive, and even after 6 years together, it's still high, and he initiates sex almost every day. I don't enjoy it more than once or twice a week, so I usually end up turning him down. He doesn't make a fuss and has never complained, but I feel guilty nonetheless. I want to bring it up with him though that I feel stressed that he initiates nearly every day, and as a result, I feel under pressure to have sex. I tried discussing with a friend, but she said that I should be pleased that after so many years together, he is still so attracted to me. So she obviously missed the point. What would be the best way to bring it up with him without upsetting him? TLDR, my boyfriend initiates sex almost every day, and it's starting to stress me out. In the comments, it's normal for couples to have differences in sex drives. You really should talk to him about this and find a compromise. It would be good for him to know how often you prefer having sex and that every day is too much for you. It sounds like he just needs to be made aware so he doesn't make you feel uncomfortable by initiating it too often. If he loves you, he would understand, respect you, and not be upset. Also, if he was upset about you turning him down so often, he would probably be complaining about it already. Good luck. Yes, came here to say, 2 reasonable people who love each other can meet in the middle. I agree. The nice thing is, OP is happy to have sex once or twice a week, which is more than a lot of couples. She can work with that. It sounds like she is still attracted to her boyfriend, and they seem to really love each other. If she was saying that she can't do it more than once a month, then they really would most likely be sexually incompatible, which is a bigger challenge to solve. I was in your boyfriend's position before, and my partner at the time's feelings on it was similar to yours. The compromise we made was that they would be the one to initiate the majority of times, since they were the one that wanted it far less. When talking with him, help him understand that it's sex frequency that you struggle with, and not sex with him. I will say though, sexual incompatibility did cause friction during the relationship, and we both suffered for it throughout its course. I would argue against this. Some people have a very low barrier to entry, how they feel about a task, versus others. If he naturally initiates frequently but doesn't take it personally when rejected, let the initiator keep initiating, but encourage OP to find ways to make him feel loved still, and maybe encourage some spontaneous initiation as well. Or find a way for someone to drive up the intensity during the day so he has a clear signal of when to initiate. If it's always a shot in the dark, then no crap he checks maybe 7 times a week. Like if OP only has sex 2 times a week, then boyfriend might only have sex 1 time a week if he doesn't initiate every day. That's a tough spot to be, so it may be good for OP to have some encouraging days and really reward the patience yet persistence of the boyfriend. I guess my point more so is, why change roles so that both people are working against their grain? Why not just communicate more around the situation than completely changing who does what, which causes its own friction? Then no one's needs are adequately met, and they feel misunderstood and out of their comfort zone. Edit. When I say if he naturally initiates frequently, let him continue, some dudes might get butthurt saying it's about equality and both parties are responsible for love and value. I'll say that in real life, people tend to deviate into natural roles and things. OP's relationship is 6 years old, and they've probably had time to sort many things out, and this is how the cards fell. It's not too late to change things, nor should the status quo be enforced, because that's how it's always been. But people want to be in love, not in a court of relational law. You can set guidelines and completely flip the paradigm, but in reality, when people are given space to be themselves naturally, things just work out. Grace and understanding is what keeps people from feeling completely sucked dry by conflict or from confrontation. When you're constantly fighting against who you feel you are, just to be with someone else, that's a pretty big price to pay just to go to sleep at night, hoping to be fulfilled the next day. Have some patience with each other. Just like to add a different perspective. I was in a 5-year thing where I initiated most of the time. At the start, we had no issues as we had similar drives, and she initiated a lot as well. After a while, it became only me initiating, which was fine for a while. It started to grate after that though. When you're the only one initiating, you're also the only one being rejected. As you said, some people are fine with that, some people aren't, and with some people, it can slowly build up. Just from my perspective, encouraging some initiation from OP isn't a bad idea. It helps reinforce to her partner that she still enjoys being intimate with him enough to actually go out and to make it happen. They don't have to fully change roles, but it always used to make my day when it happened in my case. Also, if OP is on birth control, she could also look at switching. That ended up being the root cause of the situation in my old relationship. And now on to the update. My boyfriend was initiating sex every day, and the stress of it was making me feel guilty and anxious. I discussed this with him because he doesn't react negatively when I turn him down. 2 to 3 times a week is ideal for me. He didn't get upset or defensive when I said to him that I was feeling overwhelmed. However, he said he was sorry for making me feel the way I did, and that he never intended for me to feel any kind of pressure. I'm thankful that he could see my point of view. He's not trying much since I had the conversation with him and just waits for me to initiate, which is fine. Maybe he'll be more relaxed about it with time. I'm just glad that he understood. TLDR, I talked to my boyfriend about him initiating sex every day being too much, and he's been understanding and was not upset at all. In the comments, this is how it should be. Sex drives can be mismatched, but if you love someone, you would never make them feel guilty for theirs. If anyone feels that their partner's sex drive is incompatible to the point where there is no workaround, it is better to break up rather than wear them down and guilt them. I'm someone who could go multiple times a day or go for weeks without, and I'd be happy either way. I'm glad that you have a sympathetic partner. I hope feeling less pressure will lead to greater compatibility in the future. Just make sure that he still feels like he can initiate. A long time ago, I wasn't in the mood a few times, and my husband hasn't initiated since. I'm talking a decade of being the only one even remotely suggesting anything. The fear of rejection made him never ask again. My boyfriend asked for a paternity test for our child. As soon as the results come and show that he is the father, I am leaving him. So I'm a new mum to a baby boy who is my pride and joy, and though it's been a roller coaster adjusting to taking care of a baby, the past few months have been great. Tiring, but great. I have a boyfriend of 3 years who is the first person relationship-wise that I have ever loved, and I thought that we were doing great as new parents, but also partners. On Friday, he came home and asked me for a paternity test. Just like that. It was completely out of the blue. I was putting away the dishes, and he asked for one, like he was asking what was for dinner. I'm a different race from him, but our child, apart from the skin tone, is literally his mirror image from pictures I had seen of him when he was a baby. I was stunned when he asked, and his reasons were that he had to be sure he was the father. He had to have that certainty. All I remember as he was speaking is just immediately feeling pain. The man I love doesn't trust me. He would actually believe that I would F someone else, cheat on him, and then try to pass off another man's baby as his. I have never ever given him reason to think that I would cheat on him. I have tried to be transparent and communicated, and it wasn't enough. He told me that he would give me time to think about this, that he wouldn't go behind my back and do the test, but for our relationship to move forward, he needs to be 100% sure. He repeated this because he, in his words, needed me to realize how serious he was. After thinking for a couple of days, I'm going to allow this paternity test because I have nothing to hide. I never cheated and would have never cheated on him. Once it's proven that he's the father, I'm ending it. Leaving the same day, and I'm going to try my best to be a cooperative co-parent with him. In the meantime, I'm coming up with my exit plan, a place to live, and a lawyer to work out a custody arrangement, and court. I can't even tell my family or my friends right now because they would go nuclear, and my first priority is our child. I hope the test was worth it to him. I'm not asking for advice or reassurance to explain his side. I'm just realizing this part of my life is now over. What a way to start the new year, huh? In the comments, the best advice that I heard about a divorce or separation is to say, this is now a business decision. Make all your decision-making be from that point of view. Let your friends and family, your clergy, if any, and your therapist be your emotional support system. Kudos to you for stating outright that you are going to try to co-parent. You sound level-headed despite what is going on. Did you ask what suddenly made him change his mind? Who is he talking to? I'm thinking a group of friends got into his head and he's not going to expect her to leave, especially as he said, for this relationship to go forward. Or he's cheating himself and paranoid that you are doing the same. Or just looking for an easy escape because parenthood is too much and he feels trapped. He wants to ditch the kid but doesn't want to feel guilty for it. Which sounds like an ultimatum. You just had a baby, you are helpless, you must do whatever I say because you are totally at my mercy and I have all the power. Well, surprise. It also sounds like, are you sure it's my baby? I want to be somewhere else, and if it's not mine, I won't have to pay any child support. He sounds kind of checked out, whatever it is. Well then, at least she'll already have a paternity test handy to prove that it's his kid for child support. I told my ex-boyfriend this after our miscarriage. He said he didn't believe he could produce a baby that was that genetically weak. I told him he was free to DNA test her remains, but if he did, he would be paying for the test on his own. I would be taking back the car, it was mine, he just drove it everywhere, removing him from my insurance, and once the results came back, everything of his would be thrown out into the mud. He did it. My daughter was his, and I did everything I said above. Turns out he was cheating and the other girl was pregnant. I hope you get out safely and he can kick rocks. The craziest thing about the "that genetically weak" comment is that 50% of pregnancies end as miscarriages, and half of those are due to a serious chromosomal defect. His ego is so inflated that he thinks that basic biology doesn't apply to his gametes. Most of those end before the woman even realizes she is pregnant, so people don't know how common this is. Miscarriages are tough. Wife had one with the first pregnancy. The way we got through it was by saying this was her body's way of saying, hey, something's not right here, we need to clear out and start fresh. And now we have got two beautiful little nerds. Two beautiful, non-sleeping, always peeing, always pooping little nerds. Did you know that you've got to feed and water these things every damn day? Sheesh. Wish someone would have told me that before I went and got myself into this pickle. I'm a lawyer with over 20 years experience, mainly in relationship property and trust litigation, and this has become really common in the last 5 years. It's really sad to see. From my experience, it's usually family members, parents and siblings, very rarely grandparents, that plant the seed for this. I have never seen a couple reunite once it's happened. And now, onto the update. We did the paternity test that my boyfriend wanted. So my post was removed, so I'm going to post it here. It's been a couple of weeks since I posted, and I've just been navigating things after. I'm going to call my boyfriend Mason to keep things clear. This is going to be long, I'm sorry. Also, why post on Reddit? I don't know, guys. I don't know. To clarify a few things, 1. We are different races, but to my knowledge, his family plus extended is more than okay with it. His mother actually set us up. I went to a dinner party and he and I were the only single people who had been invited, and we just hit it off. She admitted to trying to set us up for months. 2. We have had no issues with cheating or any situations where things could be sketchy during the years that we have been together. We also haven't broken up or taken any breaks. 3. Our son is his mirror image. My boyfriend confided to his cousin about the paternity test a couple of days after he asked me, and the cousin told his wife, and it spread like wildfire, especially in their family group chats. His mum put an end to the speculation, though, by doing a half-and-half pic of him and our son, but also by adding some additional individual pics of both of them. She posted the pictures in the family group chat and said, "Look at the old pics I found of Mason." After people commented, she said, "Actually, the one on the right is my grandchild," or "this one isn't Mason." Literally, the family members just thought that it was the same person in all of the pics, and that some of the photos were taken in darker lighting. That is how much our son looks like him, which I find funny, but also a little annoying. Like, I carried you for 9 months, all for you to be a copy of your dad? I didn't see the group chat, but the topic died down when his mum did that. Anyway, we talked. When I had made the first post, I was so angry and planned to leave, but the anger was quickly replaced by hurt once I calmed down. I realized if I blindsided him like that, I would be doing the exact same thing that he did to me, when he asked me for a paternity test. I planned to ask him to talk, but I also didn't want him to think that I was trying to get out of the test. So beforehand, I booked an appointment at 2 different paternity test locations. I asked him to talk when he came home, and I made sure that our child was at my mum's. I told him that whatever happened with this talk, the paternity test had been booked and would go forward. I basically asked him about his reasoning and when he started having doubts about paternity. Was it a previous relationship? Did cheating happen? He said it was about a week before he asked me that he started having doubts. He said that he was on his lunch break one day just reading articles, and he clicked on an old article about a man who found out his 3 kids weren't his after like 20 years. This led him into a rabbit hole of podcasters and YouTube videos that encouraged men to ask for paternity tests. While he thought those podcasters were idiots, he said that paternity was an exception. He said his reasoning was that some women have done this before and he just wanted to be sure. He said, "You know it's yours because the baby comes out of you, but how do I know? The test gives me that assurance." I was hurt by that, but I decided to explain how I felt. I said that for him, it was a rational request, while for me, it was basically him saying that he didn't trust me. It was him saying that he believed I would cheat on him, get pregnant, have him emotionally, financially, and physically support me during the pregnancy and birth, and basically lie to him while he raised another man's child. I told him that I understand that women had done this before, but the fact that he thought that I would do this to him is what bothered me. I told him the truth, that when I was angry, I had planned to leave, and that I even went looking into a lawyer, a co-parenting plan, and a new place to live. He was stunned that I would leave for something so small. I found that to be a weird kind of irony, that he believed issuing an ultimatum about a paternity test and basically accusing your partner of cheating was something small. I told him I was really hurt by what he said, that I was still hurt, but that if he needs his peace of mind, that we would do it. He asked about our relationship, and I told him I didn't know. We did the test 2 days later, got the results back after 3 days. He opened both of them, and to the surprise of no one, he is the dad. He was visibly relieved when he read the tests, and I don't know why that hurt more. It's been about 2 weeks from the results, and I'm still really hurt. God, I sound so pathetic. I feel pathetic. I thought the results would maybe relieve some of that, but it didn't. It's like a switch clicked when he asked for the test, and I can't find a way to click it off. I'm pretty sure postpartum is playing a part in this because all I do is cry, and I wasn't like this before. I've also moved into the spare room, something he was against, but I felt bad because apart from when our son is awake, I am sad all the time. I am looking for a therapist. I don't know how people find therapists they like so quickly, by the way, and he wants to do couples therapy, and he's looking for one too. He already has a few appointments booked just to try them out. He wants to move on. Marriage, more kids in the future, and go back to where we are, and thinks that our relationship is now stronger. While I'm just thinking, our relationship right now is weaker than a person on stilts. I don't know if I would say that we're together. The physical affection is gone. I'm not in the right mindset, and I don't want him to touch me. We rarely talk about anything but the baby. It's awkward, and I'm trying to find a way back to where we were, and I just can't see how. I'm going to try to fix this and try therapy, individual and couples, but I just have this feeling that this is basically a sinking ship. I hope I'm wrong. I want very much to be wrong. Edit, I really appreciate the kind messages. I know some people are worried, but I have a contingency plan in place. I have a lawyer, I have gotten a childcare/custody plan worked up during these 2 weeks. I've told my family, who are mostly close by. I have a rental property that I own and can go to. Our finances are separate, so I'm good there. I know myself, and I know I'm not in the right headspace right now. I'm staying in the spare room. There is no affection. Therapy, individual or couples, will hopefully help me and will hopefully reaffirm that I had the right idea in the beginning. It's not as easy to move when there is a child, so I'm making sure that I am mentally well, our child is good, and then I'll make a decision. Thank you though for all the kindness and perspectives. I really appreciate it. In the comments, so is he going to ask this of you for every kid? Or was this enough for him to realize you would never, and he was just a paranoid crap? Because this feeling you have is valid, and he never seemed to validate it at all. Did he apologize for hurting you? Like, did he show any form of genuine human growth after this? Girl, leave him. Instead of being a grown man and talking to you about his fear, he decided to ask for one. And also the fact that he doesn't see how he's in the wrong just shows that he isn't capable of taking responsibility for his action, which will be a problem in the future. Get out before you waste more time with him and find someone who can be a grown man and take responsibility. Did he even apologize after both tests came back? My 6-month-old is the splitting image of his father as well. Can't imagine not having my husband's trust. Reading your post, it feels like you were done with him. Get therapy for yourself and heal up before anything else. Wishing you and your son all the best. Thank you for providing an update. I just want to say that your feelings are valid, and I find it to be a red flag that your husband doesn't respect your feelings or thought process about any of this. He has no consideration for your thoughts or feelings and wants to proceed with the relationship as if he didn't just publicly accuse you of cheating to his entire family and all of your friends. He has provided no apology and seems to be guilt-tripping you for not wanting to share the same room or bed with him. Your postpartum isn't much of a factor in what your husband just did to you. If this wasn't your personal situation, you'd more than likely have a very different opinion of this had it have happened to one of your family members or a close friend. It's fine if you want to continue to give your marriage a chance, but please do not abandon yourself in the process or allow him to steamroll over your emotions and gaslight you into emotionally regulating for him and make everything about his feelings. It's important that you surround yourself with friends and family that support you and don't warp your sense of reality. Please don't sacrifice your mental health and dignity for a one-sided marriage where he'll know from this point on that he'll be able to make wild accusations, publicly humiliate you, then have his feelings coddled and prioritized while you drown in heartache. Continuing the marriage should largely revolve around his actions going forward, and it doesn't even seem like he's given you an apology. Wanting a paternity test is something to discuss prior to entering into a relationship and prior to impregnating someone. Is he going to ask for a paternity test every time that you have children? And now on to the final update. I left. Things have gone downhill and, under advisement, I can't really discuss it until things have been settled in court. I guess I'm really a cautionary tale on what can go wrong. Please, if you have concerns with your partner, discuss things beforehand, especially before you have a child. Thank you again for your different perspectives. Hoping to have everything settled eventually. In the comments, I was just thinking about your situation and I saw this post. I'm glad you left, but I'm sorry that you had to go through this at all. You didn't deserve your husband's lack of trust. I hope you're doing okay. I'm so sorry. Totally understand why you can't update. Wish you the best. Sad to say, after what I've read on Reddit, a lot of men are going to destroy their marriages. I'm so glad. I'm sure after an amount of time and the dust settles that you will be much happier without the man who was practically accusing you of cheating and manipulating him into raising a kid and then gaslighting your feelings about it. Remember these things and you will be golden. Best of luck. I hope you and your child are safe. I know you will be happier together without whatever toxic crap he was throwing at you this time. You are strong, your child is healthy and happy with you. Everything you're doing for them is the right thing. Never doubt it or yourself. My ex kept making jokes about our son not being his, getting a paternity test, etc., and my response was always, go right ahead. Long story short, he was cheating. My ex never bothered with the paternity test after our eldest. He always says I was cheating with my best friend, but I'm white, my best friend is very dark-skinned black, and my ex is mixed. All 4 of our children are white passing, and all but our eldest daughter are blazing lily white. He, however, consistently cheated throughout our marriage and nearly made me miscarry our youngest because he gave me chlamydia. Bonus, I am mildly allergic to the antibiotics they most commonly prescribe for it. They give me unmedicated labor-level cramps for about 24 hours after taking them. So guess who got to writhe in pain and nausea for 24 hours in her second trimester? Bonus, bonus, the antibiotics gave me bacterial vaginosis. Bonus, 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 the medication for the BV gave me a yeast infection. Time for you to buy a lottery ticket because I think you've used up all your bad luck already. After that, I don't think she even needs to buy the ticket. The wind is just magically flying it straight into her pocket. Our next post is titled, My 21 male boyfriend refuses to get a job and it is ruining our relationship. I, female 19, have been with my boyfriend, male 21, for just under a year, 11 months or so. I finished college with great qualifications. I live in England for context, as I've always been a hard worker and knew what I wanted out of life from a young age. I am now in the police and adore my career. It's what I've always wanted. My boyfriend is an entirely different kettle of fish. He has 0 GCSEs, no college qualifications, and has only managed to hold down one job his entire life for 8 months. And he left because he didn't want to go on with his boss. I wasn't with him at the time of this job, and since then, he has gotten no job offers and turns down the one job offer he got because he didn't like the sound of it. I have cut him so much slack with this job situation. He was raised in an awful household. He was consistently moved from house to house depending on what boyfriend his alcoholic mother had at the time. These boyfriends commonly abused my boyfriend and his mother. I assumed this would have jeopardized any education around 12 to 16 years of age. However, no job in almost 1 year? He now lives with his grandmother, claims universal credit, and spends it all on tattoos or cigarettes, turns down anything the job center offers him, and at the cost of sounding cruel, he lives in a pigsty. Last time I visited his house, I ended up covered in bedbug bites, had to bathe in dead flies, there was rotten food in the bathroom bin, and the kitchen was full of moldy, dirty cups and plates. He cannot be bothered to clean mess, even though he does nothing all day but sit at his PC and play video games. I have offered to help him get into therapy, but he insists he doesn't have a poor mental state. I wrote his CV, I referred him to some of my family members, as some of them own businesses, I suggested attending college again, and wrote a personal statement for him to send to local colleges. I have tried everything, and to no avail. I am moving out very soon, as I have found a lovely rented property in my area, but I can't let my boyfriend live with me because I am too scared he will not find a sustainable job and will eventually lean on my income. My family do not like him anymore. I come from a fairly well-off background, and they just view him as a lazy mess who won't pull his weight as an adult. However, I do love this man. He almost worships the ground I walk on, and he's amazing to be around. But at this point, his affection is not enough to keep me in the loop. I am so lost on this, and I'm starting to think that he is almost convinced that he will never work in his life. I don't know what to do. In the comments, I'm having a difficult time understanding why a capable, smart woman with a solid career would choose to stay with a grown man who refuses to work and doesn't even care if he's living in filth. OP says, "Hey, thank you for this. I just needed people to honestly push my head in and make me realize finally, I'm not the best when it comes to breakups. No one is, of course. I think I'm just sticking around to see something that won't happen. He has all the qualities of an amazing boyfriend, just not the job and education. I've had awful relationships up until this, and he treats me well, but I think I'm more of a trophy to him than anything, which is not fun." You're welcome. You've grown up, he hasn't, and there is zero indication that he's going to change. OP says, he's adamant that he's been trying to find a job since November 2022. I'm not sure where you're from, but in England, it is extremely easy to find a job with zero qualifications, so I find that hard to believe. He can't work in customer-facing jobs either, as he has face tattoos. Very likely not to pass interview stage. I know. He's a 21-year-old messy, dirty, jobless child. Come on, don't waste your 20s on this guy. What are you doing with this lazy, dirty, aimless loser? You need to see your own worth and do better. Dump him. OP says, I know I really do. I'll meet him tomorrow and address this, and I'll try my best to get an update. But I work very irregular shifts. I've said in previous comments that I just needed this out there so people could cut it with me and tell me what's what. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. What does he do for you exactly? Honestly trying to figure this one out. OP says, rather embarrassing to admit, but the affection. I've had a few relationships and all ended by me due to no respect for me and no effort. But other than that, nothing. Frankly, this dude doesn't appear to respect you enough to make an effort either. It's great that he's affectionate and says he loves you, but he isn't willing to lift a finger to show it. OP says, haven't been told that before, but that is very true, so thank you. Good perspective to give me. And now on to the update. Hi all, sorry for the delay on the update. I've been very busy on very long shifts with work, so it completely skipped my mind. I went round to his house on Saturday after I had a brief break from work and said to him that I was ending the relationship because of his lack of ambition and laziness. As guest, he broke down into tears and promised he would try harder and sign on to other agencies that would help him do better, work on cleanliness, etc. I told him that I had waited long enough and tried to help him, but he refused to take it, and hopefully me leaving will give him a bigger push to do better and do well for himself. And then came the self-harm threats. I asked to leave as a while had passed, and I had said what I'd wanted to say, and he claimed he was already self-harming from the way his life was, and me leaving will push him over the edge. I said I still cared about him, but I couldn't help him with that, and he followed me to my car, and I drove off. I was worried he was sincere in what he said, so I rang emergency services for a welfare check. I also blocked him on everything to stop him from potentially spam calling me. That's the end of that chapter. It does suck, but I knew that I needed better. Also means I don't have to worry about moving into my own place with someone leeching off my wages. Thank you to all the strangers here for the advice. I appreciate it a lot. In the comments, I just wanted to say good for you for ending this, as it's the healthy choice for yourself. In future relationships, value actions, not words. You said he worshipped the ground you walked on, but it sounds like he did that in words only, which are cheap and easy to spew out. Pay attention to what the people close to you are doing, not what they are saying, especially when it comes to saying what they are going to do. It's easy to say, I plan to do this, that, and the other, but do they actually follow through? Even if it's just small steps they are making towards doing what they said. Of course, some things take time, but if you don't see consistent, measurable action, it's just words. Value action, not words. Life can be hard enough sometimes without dragging an anchor around. Good for you. Well said. Having a partner should make life's burdens a little easier to carry, or at least more pleasant while everyone pulls their own weight. Also, she ended it perfectly. Crocodile tears and he said he'd do better? Nope. Already had enough time. Hope this teaches you a lesson for the next time, and that you'll work on improving. Manipulative self-harm threats? Can't control what you do? Hope you get therapy. Drive off. Don't engage. Call a wellness check and block because his actions are not your responsibility. Absolute 10 out of 10 execution on OP's part. She was clearly fed up with his BS. You don't often see such maturity from a 19-year-old. Am I the a-hole for spoiling my friend's child and turning him against her? I, 31 female, am a single woman who lives alone and doesn't mind on having children of my own. I'm not wealthy, but I make enough to very comfortably support myself. I work from home and have a flexible schedule, so I have a lot of time to live how I want. I have a complicated friendship with Emma, 27 female, because I love her, but she frustrates me. Emma is a single mum with 2 children, Caleb 7 male and Grace 4 male. Grace has had serious lung problems since birth and contracted RSV in October and has been hospitalized since. It's been a horrible time, and she's finally more stable now, but she's not well. Early into Grace's hospitalization, Emma asked me to take Caleb. Emma lives with her parents who were not willing to watch him full-time, so I happily took him in and temporarily converted my den into a room for him. He's a sweet kid who has been through a lot, and I'm happy to give him some quiet space. I've never taken care of a child long-term before, and my life was not set up for kids, but he has adjusted well. I love cooking and collecting special ingredients to use and try in new recipes, and Caleb just rolled with it. I grow microgreens at home, and he has loved watching the process and incorporating them into his food. He hasn't liked everything, but he is always willing to try. I like pour painting, and we've been having craft nights where he gets to experiment with his own canvases, which he's enjoyed. We also take trips to the museums and shows. I've kept up my regular life, and luckily, he was thrilled to come along. I would have struggled to come up with a more kid-specific lifestyle. Emma usually only calls weekly and sees him maybe once or twice a month, which bothers me, but the Grace situation must be draining, so I try not to hold it against her, but it does mean that Emma really has no idea what we do day to day. Yesterday was Christmas, and he was going to visit his mum. I sent him his gifts, which were shoes and books, plus gifts for his mum and sister. His grandma dropped him off last night and didn't really say much to me, which was weird. Caleb looked sad and didn't want to talk about it, so I let it be and we watched a movie before bed. Late that night, I got a call from Emma scream-crying at me for ruining her relationship with her son. I guess it didn't go super well, and she feels that Caleb is now spoiled because of me, and that what she can provide is no longer good enough for him. He wants to make kimchi with her. He wants to get a cat. He didn't want the mac and cheese his mum made for him. When Emma gave him a new coloring book, he told her about the paintings instead and asked her to get the supplies so they could do it together when he went back home. He asked why she never takes him to museums. I was so thrown off by the screaming that I yelled back and told her that I wasn't going to downgrade my life to suit her expectations, and she hung up on me. I feel guilty now. I really hadn't considered how I could be affecting Caleb's tastes long term, but I think that she should have thought about that herself. She knows how I live. In the comments, not the a-hole. The kid is 7. She only saw him a couple of times a month. She abandoned the poor thing. How far apart are y'all that she wasn't seeing her son? OP says, her parents' house is 10 minutes from me, but the children's hospital is in a neighboring state, about 90 minutes away. 90 minutes away is not that far, especially if you're a good parent, and that's the distance between you and your small child. It is if there is no one to watch the one in hospital. Dad doesn't seem to be around, otherwise the parents would have a kid each and swap. Grandparents are useless. You can't leave a 4-year-old alone in a hospital for more than the time that it takes for a quick shower when they're asleep. Hospital staff make kids better. They don't supervise or do personal care. A kid older than a baby in hospital can't be left alone for a few hours. Whoa, I never knew that a 3-mile radius around the hospital was a cell phone dead zone, preventing this poor mother from FaceTiming her son. Someone should do something about that. Not the a-hole. This actually made me laugh. She is so furious about the way that you are raising her child, yet she dumped him straight back to you at the end of the day? That's a whole new level of entitlement. She should be more grateful that you have been caring for her child for so long, with what I am interpreting as zero financial compensation. Absolutely spot on. The refund policy of child's upbringing does not apply here, especially when you ask for more of the same in the end. I'm gonna say not the a-hole. You took on a child when you didn't have to. Your friend's family didn't step up to the plate. Your friend visits her child so rarely, she's at risk of becoming auntie mum. You shouldn't have to give up your life for a kid that you didn't ask for, but happily took on. And now, on to the update. This isn't the happiest update, but not the worst either. It's also incomplete, but enough people have asked me for an update that I felt that I owed it to you guys. Emma has disappeared. I have not heard from her since the phone call, and she stopped showing up to the hospital around the first week of January. Grace has been released from the hospital into the care of Emma's parents. She is still very weak and lethargic, but she's recovering as well as she can. I bring Caleb to his grandparents to see her several times a week, and it's just so wonderful to see how happy they are to see each other. I can barely hold in the tears. This has been so difficult for the both of them, and I love that they have each other. There has been a never-ending series of meetings, visits, and phone calls with CPS, boards, and family lawyers these past 2 weeks, which has been a lot. There are complications to Caleb being placed with me that I had not considered before and almost resulted in him being placed with his paternal grandparents, but ultimately, it was decided it was best for Caleb to stay where he was, in his same school and near his sister. Barring any major complications, I will officially be granted temporary custody early next week, and very likely, guardianship this summer. Grace will remain with her grandparents for at least the time being, but me taking her once she's stronger has been suggested. It's uncertain if or when this could happen, but it's also a possibility. It would be best for them to be together. Emma's social media is still active. We can see her opening our messages, but we do not know where she is or who she is with. I just hope that she stays alive. I don't think I can ever forgive her for this, but her children still need her to be okay. Caleb will turn 8 at the end of this month. He wants to go ice skating. I've never gone myself, but I'm so excited to make a fool of myself with him. I just want to give him the best birthday that I can. He deserves so much. If anyone has any cool ideas, I'd love to hear them. It's not a happy ending, it is not an ending at all, but I don't see myself returning here, so it's the best ending that I have for you. I'm sorry for how disjointed my thoughts are, there is just so much in my head these days. In the comments, wow, OP, I wish all the best for you. You're an absolute hero. Caleb is very lucky to have you in his life, and he and Grace will surely be well taken care of and loved with you. Continue making these memories with them. They'll remember them for the rest of their lives. Ice skating is fun. I went for the first time in my 40s, and I surely made a fool of myself too. As far as ideas, just keep listening and hearing Caleb, as you have been. It sounds like you have been doing everything right, so I wouldn't change a thing. If you have the energy to post an update sometime later, please do so. I wish you, Caleb, and Grace all the best. OP says this isn't a happy ending, but it is in my mind. It seems like things are looking up for Caleb and Grace, and OP seems like the perfect guardian for them. I wish them all the best. I think it can be both. Caleb seems far better off with OP, and I would wager Grace would be too, but also the way it came, being abandoned by their mother, is very heartbreaking. So they may be better off, or they are, but it is truly heartbreaking that Caleb and Grace were abandoned. Wow, I'm so glad these kids have you and their grandparents in their corner. For the birthday, why not a cold day? So ice skating, ice cream, maybe a trip to a gallery with a silly prize for spotting the most winter-themed paintings, or some silly ice-themed crafting. You could also try and have Grace there for the ice cream bit. That's unlikely to stress her recovery. And OP says, I love the cold day idea. We were going to bake a cake and bring it to have with Grace, but the ice cream cake can't be that hard to make. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for not stating why certain members of my family weren't invited to my wedding? Recently, my boyfriend and I got married. I come from a very traditional, if not stereotypical, Latino family. The kisma, gossip, is deeply ingrained in the whole family. I have about 7 uncles, one of which is also bisexual like myself. He got married some time ago, and when he sent out invites to the whole family, a large majority of them declined because religious reasons, which really saddened him. I kept this in mind when it came time to send out my invitations, and those particular family members did not get one. About a week ago, my husband and I went to my dad's house for the annual family reunion. I really didn't want to go because I knew in the back of my mind this absolutely was going to get around, despite the lack of posting on any social media, but my dad and mum really wanted me there. They are very supportive and are the be loud and proud type people, and I love them to death for it, even if it's a little bit obnoxious. The spirit's what counts though, right? And I voiced this concern to my dad, and he was very insistent that if crap goes south, he'll be right there to laugh about it. The entire time, my husband and I are getting some intense side-eye. The family that didn't attend didn't even try to hide the fact that they were whispering about my husband and I. About 2 hours later, as I am 6 or so whiskeys in, these straight uncles took initiative and decided to ambush me and ask why they weren't invited. I was polite, and I reminded them that they turned down the bi uncle's wedding for religious reasons. They responded with at least wanting to be thought about and being invited. I told them that I did think about them and decided they weren't worth the 57-cent postage to be told they weren't going to attend for bigoted reasons. It would be understating to say that their reaction was less than pleased. Crap hit multiple fans. My uncles went off for being compared to a postage stamp. My dad was eating it up. My mum was a little pissy at me for causing a disturbance in her house though, which unfortunately made me question everything at that moment. My grandma was giving me the judges in Spanish look. My husband kind of grabbed my hand and said, "Let's get out of here before you piss any more people off," in a laughing manner, and proceeded to drive us home. My dad sent me a "That's my boy, good on ya for standing up for yourself" text. My mum was still less than thrilled about how things went down. My bi-uncle sent me a text saying, "Thank you for standing up for me, but now my relationship with my brothers is strained to hell, and I didn't want that." My phone and social media have been blowing the hell up ever since then, but I'm kind of ignoring it though. But I do feel bad for my uncle because he just wants to be close with all of his brothers and not just one. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for how things went down? Edit. To broadly state this, I have apologized to my uncle for using him as an example in what happened, and I truly didn't mean to make things harder for him with his brothers. I also expressed that it isn't exactly healthy for his well-being to want to put up with them knowing how they feel about him before any of this happened. He kind of remained silent on the topic, so I'm trying to leave it alone and not force it. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the butthole. I feel like I might be the butthole because, out of good intentions, I made it harder for my uncle to be close with all of his brothers. My mum also just wanted to have a good family reunion, and I ruined that. Being compared to a postage stamp probably also wasn't a nice thing to tell my uncles. In the comments, not the a-hole at all in my opinion. The comment on this not being worth the 57-cent postage was a bit of a twist of the knife, but they earned it. OP says, more than anything, I really just wanted to have a good time and enjoy myself and all the company. Why they felt the need to throw crap at all, then get mad when it gets thrown right back at them, will remain a mystery to me. But alas, some people just exist to stir it up. I'm curious, why did they want to be invited? Do they really get so much enjoyment out of being like, no nephew, I don't support your lifestyle, so I'm not going? Like I would have asked, if I had invited you, would you have come? And OP says, while there is no for sure way of knowing why they wanted to be invited, they are very loudly anti-LGBT. It's no secret. About half of their Facebook posts and Instagram posts are them making it loud and clear that it's not right. My favorite one was that one that circulated in June with the family under the umbrella protecting them from the rainbow. So between that and my uncle's wedding, I decided to not even bother inviting them. They wanted to be invited so they could say no and indirectly shame you. By not giving them the option, you took the power away from them, and bigots absolutely can't handle it when it happens. Not the a-hole. You did not only stand up for your uncle, you stood up for yourself and any other family members who are LGBTQ+. Also, they only wanted to be invited to reject you, and you just did not give them the pleasure to dismiss you. There is always one that needs to be the first one to stand up against the bullies, and you, my man, were the hero in this story. Not the a-hole, but go ahead and apologize to your uncle. You did not really need to bring him up at all. Quote, the spirit is what counts though, right? It sounds like he agrees and loves you to death for it, but thought that it was a little obnoxious. OP says, I did apologize to him, but I expressed to him that this was kind of unhealthy to want to be close to people who were so against something that you can't control. As for the whole obnoxious thing, I think you may have misunderstood me. He's the obnoxious one about it. He has gotten me several purple shirts and various articles of clothing that are purple. A couple years back, we were watching football, I don't know sports, and I asked him what a bye week is. His response was along the lines of, that's the week where footballers sleep with men, so you better get on over there and get your pick. That kind of obnoxious. I'm glad that he didn't turn out like my uncles. And now onto the update. W-2s and 1099s are finally done. I have a break to finally post this. As I guessed, family did indeed find this. Between 7 uncles, one of my cousins likely showed them the post that I originally made. It was obviously not received well, lol. Anyways, I'm just gonna go down in list order of things or events that have happened. My dad. First off, he wanted me to tell all of you that he loved all the support and that he wishes to dad all of you as well. His words were, it took 2 of us to make you, and I gotta say I love my work. Any parent that doesn't should never have tried. My mum. She had called me asking why I brought up the events of my uncle's wedding. I told her that I was simply having a good time with my husband and everyone else, that my uncles made the conscious decision to want to start a problem. She got mad and said that she just wanted to have a good party. I told her that I didn't want to be attacked for my sexuality and not inviting blatant bigots to my wedding, but that I'm glad her party meant more to her. We got into a shouting match over the phone. I told my dad what happened, and he is livid with her. They got into a fight, and now she's staying at my grandma's. I've apologized profusely to my dad, but he's telling me to let it go and that I've done nothing wrong. Above all else, this is what hurts the most. She was always so very supportive of me, and it feels like a massive bombshell was just dropped out of nowhere. My bi uncle. Unbeknownst to me, my husband invited him over so he and I could have a heart-to-heart about what happened. It annoyed me a little bit, but I'm glad that he invited him over. We talked about the post that I made and he saw everyone's comments. According to him, it kind of opened him up to the crap that he was just ignoring so he could pretend to have a close bond with all of his brothers. At the same time, though, he is still not sure what to do from here. We talked for a few hours, had a good cry hug about it, and everything is good on that front, and it makes me happy. He'll be seeking therapy to help him deal with his feelings on this. The other uncles. Obviously, they are livid with me. They couldn't believe that I posted something like that, blasting them on the internet. They said they didn't like being painted the way that I posted them. So I just straight up asked them if they thought that my bi-uncle was going to hell because of his marriage. To my shock, they had no problem saying yes. They didn't even try to dance around it. In the end, I told them that if they didn't want to be painted as bigots, to lose the religious bigoted act, plain and simple. My husband has been non-stop trying to comfort me after the shouting match with my mum. He can see the immense pain I'm in. I love that man very much. He took me out for steak and old fashions the other night to help me get relaxed. That's all, folks. Thank you. Edit. Hello, everyone. This blew up way bigger than the original post did. God damn, I definitely appreciate all the love and support that I've received from everyone in the comments. As of this edit, I've decided to put some distance between myself and a lot of family. My dad is in support of this and will be coming over to my place more often than me going over to his and my mum's to visit. As for everything else, I've got my husband, Magic the Gathering, and a nice bottle of Crown Winter Wheat to help deal with everything else. Seriously, thank you everyone. Words cannot express how awesome all of you are. In the comments, stick with the people who clearly support you. Your dad and husband are wonderful, and the fact that your uncle is willing to sit and have a mature conversation with you shows that he is worth having around. Your mum seems to have the performative, I'll support this until it's not convenient for me to do so attitude, and I hope she sees the light soon. And F everyone else. It is wonderful to see his dad support his every move and love his every move. It also probs worth remembering the uncle is very used to horrific behavior, and even though he doesn't want to rock the boat, he can't expect others not to. Every action has a reaction. We all love you and are so proud of you, and from an LGBTQ person to another, I think the whole thing was stunning. Have a wonderful and healthy future. If your straight uncles feel comfortable posting crap on their social media dehumanizing you and their bi brother, they really have no room to feel any sort of way about your use of social media. That said, your dad seems cool as hell. Bummer that he's in the doghouse. Well, personally, I think they should feel crappy as their hypocrisy is exposed undeniably to them. Quote, bummer that he's in the doghouse. Is he though? He's not the one who had to go stay with his parents. He's the one who gets to stay in his own home, sleep in his own bed, and scroll through Reddit to see all the comments about what a good dad and person he is. OP's mum is the one in the doghouse. She's the one who got kicked out of her home, the one who has to go stay with her parents until she learns to stop being an a-hole, and the one who gets to scroll through Reddit and see all the comments about what a disgusting human being and complete failure of a mother she is. The audacity of someone to say, "You're going to hell for who you love," and "Why wasn't I invited to the wedding?" in the same breath. Unparalleled. How far can one's head be up their own ass? I always love it when they say things like, "How dare you say all that stuff about us and make us look bad," when the only things they said were 100% the truth. They just wanted to, ironically, keep it in the closet. Literally, OP didn't paint them in any kind of light, didn't say anything about their personalities or how they convey things, aside from their own actions and reasoning. It's so wild to be like, "How dare you make me look bigoted by telling people the bigoted thing that I said? Also, I stand by that thing." My mother-in-law is trying to seduce me, and I can't take it anymore. I, 34 male, have been married to my wife, 24 female, for about 2 years. My wife didn't have a good relationship with her mother, 39 female, growing up, and has called her by many names, including man-eater, one-drink tramp, town's favorite tramp, and a lot worse. About a year ago, we talked about having kids, and she wasn't completely on board with the idea, even though she wanted kids. After discussing it with her therapist, my wife decided to at least try to have some sort of relationship with her mother. At the time, mother-in-law was homeless and was crashing on different couches, if not sleeping with someone. Mother-in-law convinced my wife to let her stay at our place for a few weeks, as it would be easier for them to hash things out. I didn't like the idea, but agreed because my wife wanted it. She also assured me that she would kick her mother out if she does anything out of line. My wife also barred her from bringing any of her partners into our home. I work from home, and my wife works from her office, so I have spent a lot more time with my mother-in-law than my wife has. Mother-in-law is a very different person from my wife. My wife is very conservative, gracious, and well-mannered. Mother-in-law is a slob who doesn't like to put on clothes. Mother-in-law mostly hangs out in her lingerie, not ordinary underwear, most of the time, and doesn't like covering up for anybody. My wife spends a lot of effort in dressing up at home, even if she has no plans to go out or to meet anyone. My wife asked me to ignore mother-in-law's behavior because my wife isn't interested in changing her mother's behavior, just repairing their relationship. Soon, weeks became months, and my wife and my mother-in-law did get closer. During the same time, I had to put up with seeing her naked every morning when she makes her coffee. A lot of inappropriate touching and contact between me and mother-in-law, a lot of dirty talk and cringe-worthy suggestions about my relationship with my wife, and general lack of boundaries shown by mother-in-law. At the same time, my wife has picked up some of mother-in-law's habits, like wearing underwear around the house, and has been more sexually proactive than before. My wife always defended her mother and asked me just to tolerate her for a little more time. I used to tell my wife everything that her mother would do to me, but eventually she knew what was happening and just stopped discussing it. On many occasions, mother-in-law has explicitly stated her desire to hook up with me, among a lot of other sexual desires. Last week, I woke up to loud sounds coming from the living room in the middle of the night. I went out to find mother-in-law pleasuring herself on the couch while porn played on the TV. I should have left immediately, but I stayed to watch. Eventually, our eyes met, and kept the eye contact till she finished. I wasn't sure how to tell my wife about it, so I didn't mention it to her. Since then, mother-in-law has been way more aggressive with her sexual advances and suggestions, often rubbing her body against mine under various pretenses. I've also talked to my wife about getting mother-in-law a different place, and she'd asked me for another month. Yesterday, while I was working, mother-in-law walked into my office naked and forcibly sat on my lap and forced her tongue down my neck. I felt really aroused, and mother-in-law gave me a hand with my erection, and I didn't resist. She then proceeded to go to my bedroom and called me to join her. I was ashamed of what happened and just left the apartment. I came back after my wife returned. I haven't told her about this, but I can't take it anymore. I'm uncomfortable with my mother-in-law's advances and feel disgusted with what happened between us. In the comments, learn to say the word no. It's a powerful word. The no needs to be to the wife. He needs to tell his wife in no uncertain terms that mother-in-law leaves or he does. It's like his wife is self-sabotaging. Yes, it sounds like the wife keeps defending her mother, and even OP said they didn't have a good relationship. Okay, but let's also not blame the victim of various counts of sexual harassment and assault. Right? This is it. I wonder how few and rarely this is mentioned. Why have you allowed this woman to remain in your apartment? If your wife won't kick her out, tell her that you are moving and find somewhere else to stay immediately. Quote, I have talked to my wife about getting mother-in-law a different place, and she has asked me for another month. Have you told her exactly what she's been doing? Your wife walking around in lingerie sounds like some sort of weird competition, or she's been listening too much to her mom. Tell your wife it's not working out and you're uncomfortable in your own home. To be honest, it might be good for you to attend one of your wife's therapy sessions and tell her therapist that her mother's presence is a destabilizing element in your home. And OP responds, I've tried to get my wife to kick her out. My wife has been desensitized to seeing her mother naked and flirting with everything with a pulse. I keep trying to explain to her that mother-in-law has crossed the boundaries, but I guess she doesn't want to throw away what she has found with her mother. Mother-in-law has on many occasions touched me inappropriately when my wife was present, but my wife just ignores it, as her mother being herself. My wife keeps asking me to just give her more time, and that she will make it all better for us, and I eventually give in on her requests. Your wife needs a different therapist. She's got serious issues and is self-sabotaging. You need to put your foot down, period. Mother-in-law leaves or you do. Tell your wife this will destroy your marriage and ultimately her life. And now onto the update. I told my wife everything that happened, everything I felt and how I screwed up. She was shocked and shattered. She started sobbing, and when I tried to console her, she told me to leave her alone. She told me that she was disgusted just looking at me. I packed up some of my stuff and left. I'll be staying in a hotel for a few days. In the comments, I'm not sure why your wife would be shocked. Isn't this the same wife who refers to her mother as a tramp? I suppose she's shocked because the husband let himself be helped by his mother-in-law. I'm just confused by the therapist in all of this. If the mother-in-law slept with all of the wife's previous boyfriends and they had such a toxic, volatile relationship, then why would the therapist push for reconciliation and be okay with mother-in-law moving in with the wife? I'm not a therapist, and while I do like the idea of reconciliation, I also know that this was a recipe for disaster from the very beginning. The moment the mother-in-law moved in, she ran things. The wife went in a child mode and excused everything because she was probably raised that way and conditioned to accept everything. Her mum was young when she had her, so it wouldn't surprise me if the wife was brought up being told that the mum gave up her life for her. Meanwhile, the OP was assaulted. It wouldn't surprise me if the previous boyfriends were assaulted too. I don't get how the therapist didn't see that this would happen. Our next post is titled, I hate my boyfriend's female best friend. My boyfriend, 22 male, and his best female friend D, 27 female, and I, 23 female, are studying the same degree. We started dating less than a year ago during spring break, but he and D have been friends since first semester. I knew her, but we weren't very close. She was one of the first to know that we were a couple, and she was happy for us. I didn't think anything weird about it until a few months ago. She calls him quite a lot, almost 3 times a day. They are very brief calls and for mundane things, schedule, homework, tests, things that can be asked by text. My boyfriend doesn't hide anything from me. He always shows me that it's she who calls him and answers on loudspeaker. The first thing she does after greeting him is to ask, "Are you with her?" Me. And he says yes. Sometimes she calls him after 2 in the morning or when we're in the middle of intimacy, so it's annoying. What made me go from being annoyed to hating her was when we were assigned the same place for our practices. Everything was going well at first. Sometimes she gave me rides in her car, offered to go buy me lunch, and lent me work materials. I came to consider her a friend until sometime later. When other practitioners came, she got weird. She started referring to me as the idiot instead of my first name. If someone asked about a topic, she would say, "This idiot knows," or "Ask this idiot about it." I never had many female friends, so I thought that she was just being funny, and then she started criticizing me. If I made a mistake, didn't do things as she recommended me to, or didn't support her in something, she would scold me as if she were my boss or my mum, always in front of the rest of the practitioners. I've always had a very peculiar humor, and I cannot hide it. If I'm in a bad mood, I don't want anyone to talk to me, and I tend to snap back. When it happened, she immediately got angry and complained about me with other practitioners, saying things like, "Doesn't it bother you that this idiot is so moody?" Or, "Tell this idiot to change her mood," which made me feel down. In addition, she organized a weekly lunch outing with all the practitioners on Thursday, my only day off from the practice. I don't want to tell my boyfriend because they're very good friends, and since he's an only child, he values his friendships very much. I also don't want to be the typical jealous girlfriend who forbids her boyfriend from having female friends, but I can't stand it anymore. I've come to hate my practice. I don't know why she acts like this with me. I know she doesn't want my boyfriend because she's been in a relationship for years, and I'm not a confrontational person to make her stop. Edit, I reached my limit. She called me a privileged princess because my parents are going to pay off my student debt when I graduate, while her parents took half of a scholarship she got. She doesn't know crap about me. I'll tell my boyfriend everything. In the comments, you're going to need to learn to confront someone when they're mistreating you. Even if she disappeared forever, eventually someone else will mistreat you, so you need to learn to set boundaries and enforce them. Apologize for snapping at her, but then ask her not to call you an idiot anymore. OP says, I understand, and it's something I'm working on. FYI, I didn't snap at her, I was just in a bad mood and responded very curtly to a joke another practitioner made. Also, tell your boyfriend, for 2 reasons. 1, he needs to know who she is outside of him, and he needs to know that she is treating his partner this way. And 2, if there are any emotions between them and they start dating, do not feel like you lost him. If that happens, it would have been a doomed relationship anyway. Open communication and honesty is the foundation for any relationship. If you don't feel that you can with him, it's not the right relationship. So a suggestion, then tweak as works best for you. The next time that she refers to you in front of your face as the idiot, say something like, I feel disrespected and belittled when you refer to me as the idiot. My name, as you know, is Freckled, and I would appreciate you using it. You may wish to speak with whoever is running this program and ask for their feedback on this hostility that is being projected at you. Sooner than later, as I suspect that woman will be offering feedback on you to them. And please sit down as soon as possible and discuss the ongoing hostile situation with your boyfriend. Realize she is his friend, but he needs to really listen to you and examine this relationship that he has with her. From the outside looking in, based on what you have posted, it sounds like she is very unhappy that he is with you. I think you should record her calling you the idiot and then play it for your boyfriend, explaining you didn't know how to tell him and you don't know how to get her to stop. You must stand up for yourself in an assertive, but not angry way. Practice what you're going to say a bunch of times before you do it. That'll help you stay calm. If she can't stay calm in return, she will be the one who looks like the idiot. And also, you and your boyfriend should both be putting your phones on Do Not Disturb during intimacy. That's an easy fix for that part of it. And OP says, that's a good idea. Thanks for your help. And the phone thing is not possible. Both my mother and his grandmother are sick, and we must be available for emergencies. And now, on to the update. Thank you very much for the comments. Many were helpful. For those of you wondering where my boyfriend is in all of this issue started less than a month ago, so it's not very recent. About the calls, apparently it's easier for her to call since she's a single mum and is often driving, but that doesn't justify her calls at 2 in the morning. I told him weeks ago that it didn't make me feel comfortable, and he immediately asked her to stop. I think that was what triggered her to be mean to me. When I came back from my practice, I told him everything. I tried to be firm, but I started crying. I told him all the things that she has said, that she has done, and how she makes me feel. At all times, I made it clear that I don't expect him to stop being friends with her, but to help me solve all of this, or at least understand why. Maybe talking to her. He was furious, which is unusual for him. He told me that under no circumstances he would let someone treat me like that, and that he didn't care if they'd been friends for years, because, after what I told him, he didn't want to talk to her anymore. He showed me their chats to confirm that there has been nothing between them and apologized for not noticing sooner. I told him that I never doubted him, and that I kept quiet because I didn't want to jeopardize their friendship. He scolded me for it and promised that I can always tell him everything. Now she ignores me. There is only 1 month of practice left, and after that, I won't have to deal with her again. She made a passive-aggressive comment about girls needing their man to defend themselves, and I told her, at least my boyfriend cares about me, which made her go quiet. She always complains that her boyfriend is jealous, checks her phone, and won't let her go out without his permission. She was also kicked out of her thesis group for never showing up for the meetings, so that would be it. I arranged my schedule so I wouldn't have to deal with her for the rest of my practice. And while it all worked out without confrontation on my part, I'm working on being able to set limits in the future. In the comments, this is amazing. I'm so glad Joel worked that out. I agree, don't completely let your guard down, but to be honest, everything seems great and your man seems amazing by 10, so I would continue living the good life and not worry about it. The best update, and the boyfriend telling her she can tell him everything. It's nice to hear about a good significant other for a change. The nature of the sub that things aren't usually resolved in a positive way, I get it, but I'm so happy to read about an update that isn't some bozo gaslighting or denying some indiscretions. Wow, a good boyfriend who actually listened and took the right option? He's a keeper. I think it's a lot more common than Reddit of all places would like to think. Yeah, if you have more time on Reddit than in actual relationships, you'd think every man will smack you around and every woman will cheat on you and steal your stuff. People are generally quite nice. My stepdad turned my family against me. My dad passed away when I was 15. Him and my mum weren't all that close by that time, so while it hit me hard, she wasn't as fazed as you'd expect. I joined the military when I was 17, and in my first year out of the house, my mum remarried. I never really vibed with him, just had different personalities and such. He would often make snide remarks and tell me to man up about any inconvenience I'd be upset about. This led to spats between us, and I was often just as at fault as he was for these disagreements, though it never got too serious. I got medically discharged after a little under 5 years, and my mum and him said they'd be happy to have me back in the house. I told them that it would be brief, just until I got back on my feet and got a job, and even offered to pay rent, to which they declined. About 3 days into being back home, my stepdad, when alone with me, asked what he thought a fair rent would be. I was confused, but it was his house, so we came to an agreement, and I kept it from my mum, assuming he did not want her to know, as he never mentioned it around her. I never asked for anything from them, not out of spite, I just wanted to do things myself. He had a son from a previous marriage. Him and I didn't share any common interests or anything, but I never had any issues with him. I'd say we got along. The only thing is, he was given a lot from them. Paid for his schooling, paid for his car, paid for his living arrangements, through college, and even after. I was a little less than a year older than him, so he started college right after they married. Like I said, I didn't want or need the help, but it felt lame that he would get all that assistance, and I was immediately asked for rent. But I digress. I moved out after 3 months, and not long after, I met a girl who I was crazy about, and we started dating. It was my first relationship, and I was over the moon the entire time. Like in that early relationship haze, but it was just constant. I was very nervous to bring her home. My mum and I were very close, and I always worried she would be very judgmental of a girl I'd bring home. My worries ended up being unwarranted. They got along extremely well. My girlfriend does not have a family, long story, so my mum and stepdad became like that for her. Her and my mum hit it off extremely well, to the point that they were hanging out just the two of them at times, and it made me extremely happy. My stepdad even really liked her too, and I felt that it brought us closer, which isn't something that I felt I wanted until we were. His dad abandoned his family growing up, and he put himself through school and got a nice high-paying job all by himself, which I had immense respect in him for. About a year in, I knew this was the girl that I was going to marry. I told my mum and stepdad, and they both seemed extremely happy. She was practically part of the family already. My mum gave me her engagement ring my dad gave her, which she kept. The job I had didn't pay so great, so I figured even if it wasn't the ring that she'd always have, it'd be a great placeholder. When I proposed, my girlfriend told me that it wasn't a placeholder, and she absolutely loved it. I was legitimately never happier in my life. We started wedding planning, and my mum and stepdad said that they'd help take care of the finances. It was the first time they had offered to help me financially, and it really meant a lot. Fast forward to about 3 months later, I get a call from my stepdad who said that I needed to come over. It felt a bit ominous, but I went over there after work. When I got there, I was greeted by my mum, stepdad, stepbrother, and fiancé. I saw her on the couch and could tell she had been crying. I immediately thought someone had died and went to go sit next to her when my stepdad stopped me. He started hitting me with accusations of me cheating on her for our entire relationship. I was puzzled and told everyone there that I don't even text any woman that I'm not related to besides her. Apparently, some girl had gotten my fiancé's number and told her that we were sleeping together for over a year now, but she didn't know that I was in a committed relationship. She sent her screenshots of alleged conversations and knew stuff about me that a random person wouldn't know. I, like a fool, couldn't see what was happening in front of me. I was stunned, saddened, and furious. I begged her from across the room to look at my phone and see that I'd never done any of that. Her and my mother were both weeping, and I started to cry. My stepdad called me every word he could think of, and he escorted me out of the house while telling me that if he saw me on his property again, he would call the police. I spent the next several weeks trying to contact them to no avail. Calls, texts, voicemails, every messaging app out there, nothing. After those weeks, I got a call from my stepdad who told me to stop trying to contact her and that I was never welcome in his house or around his family again. I tried to call my mother over this time, to no avail as well. After about a month, all I got from anyone was a text from my mother saying how sad and disappointed she was. My mother didn't really have much family, so they always spent holidays with my stepdad's side. They all shunned me as well. I saw their Christmas pictures on Facebook with my ex-fiancé present and seemingly in good spirits, which crushed me. The only family I had that would talk to me at all was my dad's brother and his family. Despite that even, they all seemed wary of me too. The only one that I truly think believed me was my uncle. I don't think I'd have made it without him, honestly. He showed me what I'd been missing in fatherly love, and I've never been so grateful for anyone. About 6 months after it all, I moved away from the East Coast and I settled out in California, needing to get away from it all. A little less than a year after I moved, I got a call from an area code from back home, which I rarely got anymore. I picked up and it was my stepbrother, whom I promptly hung up on. He called me back and I ignored it, but it stuck with me all day. I decided that if he called back again, I'd pick up. Which he did later that night. It was awkward at best. He told me that my fiancée was really torn up for a long time. It took her nearly a year for him to even start looking again for a significant other. I hadn't at all since it ended. A few months into her doing so, my stepdad encouraged him to ask her on a date, which he did. Things went okay for the first couple outings, but they never really clicked apparently. He told my stepdad about that, and the idiot told him, "I didn't get rid of OP for nothing. She's a great girl. You need to figure it out with her." I almost collapsed, and it was quickly replaced with anger. Apparently, he had gotten a girl, I still don't know who, to pose as someone that I had an affair with, and forged some message screenshots to have her send to my fiancé. He told me that he'd said it to him about a month ago, and he didn't know what to do. Apparently it bothered him enough that he couldn't just sit on the information anymore, so he told me and said he was going to tell my mum and fiancé the next day. He called me first as a courtesy, so he knew what to say to them regarding me. I told him where I was and that I'd appreciate it if they didn't immediately contact me, so I had some time to digest it all. That was last Tuesday. I just texted him and told him that I was ready to talk to them if they wanted to, and that they could call me tomorrow. I really don't know what I'm going to say, or them for that matter. I expect some tears and a good number of apologies among other things. I don't really know if I'm ready to give forgiveness or anything like that. The only person I've told so far is my uncle, who I've asked to keep it to himself. Sorry again for how long this was. My therapist picked a crap week to go on vacation, and I needed to vent. Update. We'll post a longer update tonight, I think. No phone calls from anyone else yet, but a good call from my stepbrother that felt nice. I appreciate the support from everyone. I'll try to get to all the comments as well when I get a chance. In the comments, "Your stepfather is a truly awful, insecure, small-minded man. Just my 2 cents, but you should always stay in no contact with him. He will never be on your side. You might be able to understand why ex-fiancé believed what she did, and even forgive her, but that does not mean that you should re-establish any type of relationship. That boat sailed when she didn't believe you or give you a chance to prove your innocence. There are plenty of other women out there for you to meet who aren't easily manipulated or dragging the baggage of faithlessness with them. I am so sorry for all of the pain this has caused, but as long as your stepfather is in the picture, your own life will be much happier without any of them in it. I hope OP doesn't accept what they've done, but keeps moving on where they are with their life. I don't think there's anyone in that family to reconsider taking back. The apology is going to be a hollow one, the ex-fiancé will be the most devastated as well, but even then, there was no trust to believe OP at all, and then she rubbed it in by staying all of those years with the creepy stepfather. The mother is a real gem herself too. Honestly, the only one that could be seen as decent is the stepbrother who took a while to even reach out to OP. I'm sorry to hear this. The whole situation is awful. Your stepfather is a crap human. Your mum, no matter if you did cheat, sorry to say, was weak. As a mum myself, I know my child might mess up and make mistakes, and cheating on your partner is terrible, but doesn't necessitate going no contact to her only child. You and your fiancé were betrayed by a gross-ass man who had zero business doing what he did. He's frickin' juvenile, and I sincerely hope karma bites him in the ass by having his whole family turn their backs on him. I'm curious why your stepdad did this, if there was some jealousy from his end to you or some other insecurity. In the meantime, you don't have to give forgiveness to anyone at any time if you don't want to. Focus on your own needs and working through your feelings. Please keep us posted how your conversations go and how you are doing. Based off their history, my guess would be that stepdad thought OP wasn't man enough to be with his fiancée or something and decided to set his own son up as the person that he felt actually deserved to be with her. And now for the update. Alright, sorry for the delay. Busy day at work and obviously a lot of other stuff on my mind. My stepbrother called me this morning and told me exactly what happened this past week. So apparently, what my stepfather said wasn't exactly what he told me. He elaborated more and said he was very careful with his words so as not to incriminate himself. Per him, heavily and very clearly implying what he did without directly saying what he did. The thing about my stepbrother is, he is much smarter than me. Instead of just walking to my mother and fiancé with that and getting into a shouting match with his dad, he took a different course that I wouldn't have thought of. He got a hold of my ex's phone and he found the girl. He said that it took him forever to backtrack it. He gave her a call and got her to meet him out in public. That's where it all came to a head. She was a Tinder match with my stepfather, which I think pretty clearly indicates that he had been sleeping around on my mum. That irritated me even more for obvious reasons. The girl alleges they did not sleep together. However, whether that is the truth did not matter to me. What does is my stepbrother talked to her and pulled on her heartstrings with the story and all that had happened. For the record, she clearly knew what she was doing. Maybe the time and hearing what had happened to me really shook her up, but again, it doesn't matter to me. She told him what happened. $1,000 for a phone call. That was the deal. He told her what to say and supplied the pictures of evidence. She made the call and that was that. My stepbrother then asked her if she could tell my mother and ex, and even offered to pay her again for the record. She agreed for free, and that happened on yesterday. My stepfather is on a business trip until Wednesday, so it was just the four of them there. She came in and spilled it all to my mother and ex. Stepbro said the tears started almost immediately from all three of them. After everything, he told them that I was in California and that he would tell them when I wanted to be contacted. Was before I texted him. A little backstory for you guys to try to understand some stuff about my mother and ex-fiancé, and this is in no way defending their actions, just to help some folks understand. My mother and I were inseparable after my dad passed. We were each other's rocks. When I turned 16, I began to drink to kinda dull it all a bit. I told my mum that we'd spend New Year's together the year that I was 16, and I ended up out with my friends, drunk as all hell. I got a text from my mum, who spent the night alone at home, and that was where we were never quite the same. She sent me a text about how sad she was all alone, and I felt like complete crap over it. I stopped drinking that day until after everything went to hell. She is the type of person to always need someone. She can't handle being alone. I think when her and my dad's love began to fade, I filled that void, and when I was growing and ended up leaving home, my stepfather filled that void. And then my ex, as I said earlier, she doesn't have a family really. She had some real trust issues due to this, along with some really nasty past relationships. Despite this, she never would talk badly about past boyfriends, which I really admired. One was physically abusive, and I consider that an obvious exception. I, despite being debilitatingly shy, have often been told that I'm cute, especially by younger girls, meaning younger than me, not children. I never really liked that title, as it's not very masculine, but I got over it and learned to appreciate my boyish face and how often I would blush. My fiancé is just shy of 3 years older than me, and I've always preferred older girls and never given much time or thought to girls who seemingly liked me because they were 18 to 20. This didn't stop attention, which upset my fiancé. She'd often ask why I wasn't interested in these girls, and why didn't I leave her for someone younger and prettier, etc. I always found her extremely attractive, significantly more attractive than me, honestly, and would always reiterate that to her, and that I never cared about any other girl. Okay, sorry to get off track. That again I hope brings a little insight to why I think they did what they did and believed what they believed. Again, this is not an excuse for them, nor am I really all that understanding personally. At the end of the call with my brother, he said they both wanted to call today, and I told him that it'd be fine. So I sat and waited. By about 3 p.m., I was a little confused. I started to wonder if he'd made it all up to mess with me. It really worried me, honestly. I got a text from him asking if I was all good. I said yeah, and asked if they were actually planning on calling today. He said they'd been trying for the last few hours. I'd blocked them both when I moved out west and had just forgotten. Why I didn't block him, I don't know. I'm thankful that I didn't though. I unblocked them both and got a call from my mum about 10 minutes later. First thing she said was that I sounded different. I almost hung up right then. It took all I had just to say, yeah. She broke down immediately after that. I really thought that I'd feel more. I'd be lying if I said I felt nothing, but the pain of it all just took hold of me more than her words. She asked if I'd gotten her texts. I said no. I guess she'd been trying to text me over the last year, but I had her number blocked. If she really wanted to reach me, she could have. Maybe that's a little crappy, but I know it's true. I pretty much told her that I'd be willing to build some semblance of a relationship back with time, and she was happy with that. She also told me that she was getting all her necessities out of the house before my stepfather got home, and she would be filing for divorce immediately. I believe her too. She may be a poor excuse for a mother in my eyes, but she's never been someone to take half measures. I really wish I could be there to see that prick's face when he comes back to an empty home. My ex got the phone next and did the same tearful apologies my mum did. I felt a little more with her. I actually tried to get her to think and remember how many times I told her that I'd never do that to her and how much I loved her. She was beside herself, and to be honest, I'm glad. We talked for about half an hour, and I really thought that it was pleasant. Even though I told myself for over a year now that it would never happen again, thought there could still be something for us. She told me she still had the ring, and it made me upset. I told her to give it to my mum because it didn't belong to either of us anymore. I could tell that really crushed her, and selfishly, I wanted it to. She asked if she could call and text me. I told her it was fine, but to not expect a prompt response either way, which she understood. I pretty much gave her the same ultimatum as my mum, though I said any chances of us having a future relationship were very slim. She said she understood that too. I talked to my brother last and thanked him for everything he had done. He was helping my mum get her stuff out of his father's house. He apologized for all that had happened and told me he was going to tell the rest of the family everything as well. Them I have no connection to and won't say a word to, I don't imagine. Except my stepfather's mother, oldest person in any of the families, and she wished me a happy birthday and Merry Christmas over the last year. Maybe she was old enough that she doesn't care, maybe she felt bad, but I will talk to her, odd as it is. Sorry for all the rambling. I fly home for my uncle's 60th birthday the first week of March. It'll be my first time home since I moved out here. I'll definitely plan on seeing my brother as well. I'm not adverse to seeing my mum and ex, but I've made it clear to them that I've got a lot of healing to do, and so do they. If anything further happens, I will update again, maybe after that trip home, but that looks like it for the time being. Also, this is kind of the last social media I have. I haven't been on here super often in the last year for the reasons I'm sure you could guess. I truly haven't seen any similar stories to mine that have been referenced in the comments, though I'd like to if you can find them. I'm more than happy to answer any questions anyone would have regarding this whole thing to the best of my knowledge. Thank you, everyone. Brief update. I got a call from a number back home. I deleted most of my numbers a while ago from anyone that I wasn't talking with. I picked up and it was my stepfather. He said hello and I hung up and blocked the number. I immediately called my mum, fiancé and brother. They are all safe, not around him. Mum's in a hotel that he doesn't know about, fiancé and brother are at their residences, and both say they feel adequately protected. He is not by any indication a violent man, but better safe than sorry. My brother said that he got a call from him this morning when he got home after my mum wasn't there and wouldn't answer. Brother told him what happened and not to contact any of them. Not sure how long he sat there, but he called me around 3 p.m. Pacific. About an hour ago, I got a message from a different number saying, "We need to talk." I assume that's him. I haven't responded, and that's the latest. Brief update 2, stepdad's mother called me. I had her number saved because of what I previously stated. I was a bit worried it may have been him trying to gather some info or something, but it wasn't. She's a very sweet lady who did not have to be nice to me in any way, but has shown me compassion. She was very nice and wished me well, while also apologizing on behalf of the family. I thanked her and wished her the best too. Shocking that he came from that woman. In the comments, "Wow man, this sure is a lot for you to process. I'm glad everyone found out the truth now, and you have every right to take your time to rebuild the relationships that were destroyed, if that's what you want to do. I highly suggest you start therapy too, and we would love to hear from you again." OP says, "Started therapy after moving last year, and most definitely have benefited from it. Don't meet him or talk. Cut him off and move on. He's only going to try and regain control of the narrative. Nobody needs to hear him out. The problem is OP's mum and ex might give in, especially since they feel very alone right now. They are very vulnerable, and stepdad probably knows that this is his best window to regain control. Honestly, it might be an idea to get them out to meet in person far away from stepdad, although personally, I wouldn't be too big on it. But if it got them away from someone like that, I might consider it. Might. Honestly, the worst in my opinion is your mum. At 16, she distanced herself from you because of a stupid teen behavior from someone who lost his dad. Instead of being an adult and understanding that she can't rely on you like you were an adult and actually go to therapy, she just blamed you and resented you, guilted you. And when all of this happened, she chose your fiancé over you. That is unforgivable in my book. You are her child. My mother would still stand by any of my siblings if we were crazy murderers, would not approve, but would still love us. Yours chose to abandon you, plain and simple. That is not unconditional love. I wouldn't have any kind of relationship with any of them without them going to therapy. And OP says, "Yeah, I would definitely agree. She needs to see someone about her attachment issues. I don't think she resented me for that stuff. I think it was just that she realized I wasn't a long-term solution for her, and it inadvertently drove her into the arms of a crappy guy. I still have love for her, but she's got to do some work for it to become a relationship again." The stepdad sounds like he deserves to be forever alone. I hope everyone shuns him. This sort of scumbag always finds a new victim until they are old and bitter and either change or die. He's already on dating apps. I bet he moved straight on to the next one. Especially since he seems to think that people are interchangeable. Like, even if ex-fiancé is a great girl, why would she be a good match for stepbro, who is nothing like OP? The logic of it all doesn't even make sense. She's a person, not a possession like a car or a house. His whole plan hinged on being able to just swap out OP for his Bio-Son, which is just a stupid plan for so many reasons. And yet, Bio-Son is the MVP in this story. I kinda love him because he chose integrity and new family over his own father. Not everyone will do that, particularly if raised by a shitheel like Dad. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys today. I do hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.